everyone, welcome to this third video where we will be addressing the handout number 2, which will cover the topics for chord progressions for three chord progressions, which is 1 4 5 1 in a major key, 1 4 5 1, the same chord progression but now in a minor key, and 1 4 5 with a seventh and first degree in a major key. In this case, for this example, we're using D major and D minor as the keys. So in the top, you can see the chords, right? That I'm using through all these videos. What I will be doing is I will be uh, particularly when addressing the chord progressions. I'll be using whole notes, one whole note per measure, just to um, state really clear um, the 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 function of the chord and how it sounds, so we can have a time to hear it. So it's where we're using whole notes and one whole note per measure, and also one whole note per chord, right? So it's why that's the structure that I'll be using. And also, for example, from this section from the measure number 1 to number 8 is I'm repeating twice the same corporation 1 4 5 1, but in the second part I'm using um, the same corporation, but now I put some inversion so that we can hear um, how the same corporation might have a different I will kind of call it like a sound or color or intention, just if we make some changes on the from root position to an inversion. So um, the idea here is to, first of all, we're going to hear the uh, this 8 major section for the corporation 1 4 5 1 in a major key. So let's hear this. Okay, so I want to mention here that if we remember from the previous video, in this case we are using um, 5 1 cadence, which is a perfect cadence, right? So is why at the end of this, for example, in these 4 measures, uh, we can get a sense of resolution. I want to play just these 4 measures, so for we to hear that resolution. Okay, let's hear it again. So one more time, and I will be kind of saying some like a word or phrase that will describe the intention of each chord. So the first one is stability, the first degree, and then 4th degree will be movement, 5 will be tension, and then again uh, stability. So we remember that the first degree, according to our chart that we have in the for week number for the previous week, for the handout number 1, we need to remember that the first degree is the tonic, the 4th degree is the subdominant, and then the 5th degree is the dominant, and then we go through a perfect cadence to a tonic, right? So we go from um, stability, movement, tension, and stability again. So let's hear it one more time, and then I will keep the recording through here to the measure number 8, so we can hear the same structure, but now with using some inversions. Okay, just one final time. Perfect. So now let's move to the same chord progression, but now in a minor key. So let's hear how different this is. I'm using the same idea. The first four measure is the chord progression using chords in root position, and then in the I would say the second kind of subsection I'm using the same chord progression again, but now with doing some inversions on the chord. In this case, um, we are in the key of D minor. I'm using the harmonic scale. Therefore, the 7th degree of the scale, which in this case is the C sharp, is raised by half tone in order to give us the leading note, right, and also to allow our first degree to be a dominant chord. So let's hear the progression 1 4 5 1 in a minor key. One more time. Oh, it went forward. Okay, let's put it back here. Good. Let's hear it one more time. It definitely brings a different kind of flavor or color, right? To if compared with the with the same progression, but in a major in a major key, right? So I just want to play like this section of 16 measures so we can hear that difference. And then let's move to the uh, cadence again is 1 4 5 1, but now in the 50 degree, and we have is chord with a seventh, right? In this case, we in the case of uh, in the case of the seventh chord, we'll be adding to the top of the note for at the very top, the seventh of the chord. In this case, since we are in D major, the fifth degree is A major, right? So A major has A natural, C sharp, E natural, and G natural. So here, so A, C, E, and G, right? So let's hear how this cadence sound. The same structure again. The first part is in chords in root position, and then it moves to have some inversion in some of this. Let's hear one more time. So definitely, the seventh chord gives a different flavor, right? Just the seventh on the chord gives a different flavor if compared the with the fifth degree with no seventh. So definitely that G gives a just a different touch, right, to the uh, also yeah, like the flavor of the chord. So let's hear it again. Perfect. So when you hear one more time the whole set of examples. Perfect. So now I want to bring to the conversation something that it is important to mention it um, uh, because in the tradition of Western, particularly in the Western classical music, um, more specifically, if we are particularly addressing the from the Baroque to the Romanticism, um, going, going through the classic, right, in the middle. Uh, in that tradition, is sometimes advisable to avoid movements of what is named parallel fifths and parallel octaves. What are those? Are like in the voices sometimes. Um, if we were, for example, in a class for harmony or for counterpoint, to have parallel fifths or parallel octaves usually is something really like forbidden, as yeah, as if we were taking a class specifically in about harmony and counterpoint, is something that sometimes is not uh, recommendable. That um, as kind of the base of um, for eventually going to composition. Nevertheless, doesn't mean that is wrong. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that it's not advisable advice at the beginning of when we are learning how to make some chord progressions and how to use the voices in the chord progression, because it's said that these movements, uh, because are really stable, sometimes do not allow a good flow of the voices, and also in for example, if you hear Bach, you can see one of the qualities in his music is that all the voices are really independent from each other. So sometimes having these movements for two or more octaves or fifths in a row is considered something that you are in some way kind of not allowing the voices to be independent. So in a way, you are restricting the independence of the voices, right? And so I'm giving some examples here. For example, here you have a in this side, I'm using, as you can see, the very same chord progression uh, that I wrote here, right? You can see the very same chord progression. This one, these 8 measures, than this one, right? Nevertheless, what I did here is I make I wrote another set of 8 measures using the same disposition and using the same bass, right? Because it is the very same bass um, line in the kind of in this example and this, but I changed some things on top of this in order to uh, create on purpose, right? For talking about this, some in this case some parallel octaves. So when we're talking about parallel octaves, those is not necessary like a the notes are within a range of 1 octave. It can be more octaves. For example, here, um, these two notes are 2 octaves away. Nevertheless, it is very same sound. So in some way, is also blocking what is the sound for these two notes get in some way kind of behind a curtain, to say, just to give an kind of an analogy, right? Because the sound of the bass and the in this case, if we were talking about like a singer, the bass and the soprano will be um, really covering most of the kind of the sound that will be produced. Therefore, the voices in the middle will not really sound right. Will kind of be covered by this by the bass and soprano, right? So that's also something that sometimes happen with octaves and parallel fifths, that in some way it's like sounds in the middle sometimes get not get covered, right? You can also find the parallel octaves between the soprano and the tenor, or the tenor, the soprano and the alto, and then the alto and the tenor, right? Sometimes you can find also those octaves between those two voices, or between those two voices, or between those two voices. So it's important to keep an like to try to avoid those movements, either for parallel eights. Again, when I'm talking about eights, um, I'm I'm referring to the same note, even though the note might be like more than 1 octave away, right? Because in the case of this one is 2 octaves away. This one is 2 octaves away. The same case here, right? And so if you see there are three in a row, so usually it's not advised two in a row. In this case, is more than two, three, right? And again, here is two in a row, which is also the same case. The idea is that the voices are independent and they move different, sometimes in different directions. At least that's kind of the logic in some of the tradition for classical music, and it's something that if you were taking classes for harmony, like and counterpoint, it will be something that will be addressed. Same thing goes here. Fifths, right? We have a G, from G to D. We have a fifth, and then from A to E, we have another fifth and two in a row. It's got the same logic. Doesn't need to be um, exactly a fifth in the same range. It can be a fifth just by like taking as a count the the um, the potential range, right? That will be, in this case, will be from G. If we make a count from G uh, to to D. So yeah, from G to D, there's a fifth, right? So it could again be either within um, um, the same octave, or between voices that are in like one that is really high and the other really low. In this case, from the soprano and the bass. So it's something to kind of also just be aware of. Again, this is not that is wrong. There's nothing like that could be labeled as wrong, because For example, if we were to um, compose something for rock, for example, in rock they might use some of these uh, parallel octaves and parallel fifths just to make an emphasis, right? Because it's so strong and so stable the sound of those intervals that actually creates a good idea for stability, for just kind of um, make an emphasis, right? Make an emphasis of an idea like ton 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 ton. If you're something like that, sometimes the rock has is really making kind of emphasis in one particular idea. So it's not looking really for different voices going different in different directions and independence of voices. I mean, it's not looking for that. It's more looking for an effect. So depending on the kind of music that you are composing, it might be okay, right? And it's completely permissible. Yeah, I'm just want to mention this because in part of the tradition for classical music is um, on Western classical music is something that um, we are told to kind of always keep in mind those kind of moments, and you will see in the next handouts, um, particularly in the handout number uh, 4 and number 5, how this how I in this case I developed the idea for this what looks really simple cadences here that I create with whole notes, how this can be developed into a little bit more elaborated ideas with different rhythms and um, just kind of playing a little bit more with the voices, right? So that it's not too um, mm, I don't know, with lack of rhythm and I don't know, just the sound itself. So I'm kind of developing these ideas in the handout number 4 and number 5. But this is, I would say, this is kind of my skeleton. This is the structure that I'm kind of having in mind when I start adding other components in rhythms or some, um, yeah, when I'm kind of trying to make I'm trying to create a melody, right? Or maybe making a, disposition for a string quartet, or well, different ideas. But in some way, in my ear, this disposition is what I keep in mind, right? Because from here's where I can develop more ideas. So it's kind of important to keep in mind what I was mentioning about um, the parallel eights and parallel fifths when you are kind of making your skeleton. If you decide to take this approach, again, this is one approach that I'm taking. It's not the only one, but I'm kind of trying to create to go from a skeleton, right, like for chord progressions, and then moving to how to kind of build from that skeleton is the kind of approach I'm taking here. But again, it's not the only one, but it's the one that I want to share, right? And well, that'll be. Oh yeah, I want to play the example I was showing here. I actually so I have it written down, and I will try to place this. I will make it smaller to see if we can fit both. Let me see. I want to put it here so we can hear like one like one set of one cadence with not parallel octaves, which will be this first 8 measures, and then one section with the parallel octaves, and then one section with again with no parallel fifths, and then another section with parallel fifths, which I uh, marked it here with blue. So the perfect octave, the parallel fifths, and they also call perfect. But anyway, I want to use here the parallel and the word parallel. Um, the parallel octaves in this case, and then the parallel fifths for where is marked on blue. So let's hear here, and let's keep an eye right on how they sound with no parallel octaves, and then how it sounds with parallel octaves, and you can you know um, kind of make your mind if that's something to that actually makes a difference. I mean, it's up to you what your perception is, but let's hear it. Let's hear it one more time. I want to see if I can make it a little bit bigger. Um, Especially put attention in this section when it's like the one um, the one um, the 1 4 5, right? When we have like this the octaves, how it's a way those parallel octaves kind of absorb more of what we hear. So there is not really what kind of in the middle gets in some way um, sucked by this other bigger sound, right? In some way, kind of absorb uh, what is in the middle, right? Because kind of really kind of gels to our ear those octaves that are moving. But again, let's hear it. See, some way that one kind of kept more of the sound. I just want to hear this part here. Let's play it from here, so you can hear how the soprano and bass really kind of get most of the sound because I'm repeating the same note, right? Now let's compare it with the same corporation with but with not uh, parallel octaves. Okay, and now the other with parallel octave. And the same case here, let's do um, the same section. Again, we're using the fifth degree with the seventh, right? And let's hear the same idea. The first section do not have a parallel octave, and the parallel fifths, and then the second section do have parallel fifths. So let's hear. I don't know what you think about this one. In my opinion, the parallel octaves are more evident and in some way um, kind of take more attention than the parallel fifths. That's at least my perception. I don't know if you agree or not with this, but to my ear, the parallel octaves are a little more evident. Therefore, to not allow too much independence on the voice, or kind of get in some way. I don't know. It's like if you were in a car and in some way putting like a brake, it's not letting kind of flow really well. The independence of the voice. Meanwhile, the parallel films kind of have some way the same feeling, but I don't think it's as evident, in my opinion, as the parallel octaves. But I mean, uh, I don't know what you think about this, but let's hear it one more time. Oops. fifths. Yes. So yes, you can definitely well, at least in my perception, in my opinion, yes, it's still those parallel fifths seem really strong because are on the soprano and the bass, but I would say not as strong as the parallel octaves, at least in my opinion. But well, um, so this is all for this video. So we will see. Well, you will hear me uh, in the next video. So thank you.